Hello, welcome back to the MMA Split podcast, where this week we have very little UFC related to talk about. There is a preview show that will be dropping this week, looking ahead to UFC Vegas 61, headlined by Mackenzie Dern taking on Yan Xiaonan. As a result, this is going to be more of an NMA podcast. So it's like as we like to call a non-MMA podcast. Although we do have some Bellator to talk about. Bellator 285, a couple of old timers still performing. Good main event. Well, actually, a few old timers still performing in Bellator. Lots of NFL talk because the NFL season is past 3 weeks now. Me and Josh's teams are smashing it at the moment, so we're definitely going to enjoy that. Maybe we even touch on a bit of Premier League football as well, and who knows, a bit of media, entertainment, current events. We'll just see how the time goes on. With that in mind, I am of course your host Matt, joined as always by our producer.
Josh. What Premier League football? It's been like 2 weeks. There's been no footy at all. It's been ridiculous.
It's upcoming. It's upcoming,
but Jesus Christ, in a World Cup year. Fucking, what was the point in having the international break? What are they getting the week before? Absolute shite. But this is I'm gonna excuse me. This will officially go down as a Bellator breakdown. So for those of you that clicked on it, we are definitely gonna touch on Bellator 285 and 286. But yeah, Matt. What do you want to start with?
Well, man, I think if you are still going to call this episode Bellator Breakdown, we might as well start with some Bellator.
Yeah. I've got a thumbnail to use already, so that's what I'm thinking. It's Bellator Breakdown. It's going to be longer than that. You zone out after, I reckon, minute 15, if you don't want to hear anything else. But yeah, Bellator 285.
What if I make some adjustments to the thumbnail? So that I can include the Bellator stuff, but then add some MMA stuff over the top.
Yeah.
Just so that we're not false advertising.
Oh, no. We're still false advertising. This,
yeah.
I'm going to write it out as well. It's going to be, I'm going to put everything in the description, but I'm just going to put like the Bellator breakdown. Because we've done the Bellator breakdowns before. It fits the nice little, I like to see that consistent kind of naming patterns and things.
Well, that's appreciated.
A little bit there. But
although I'm dropping this on.
It's not a stringent thing. I never enjoyed the humming thing that you and Sly did, and I don't think you ever did it the same way more than once.
No, we also didn't do it the same as each other at any point. Sly had a completely different understanding. Like he did the sort of like doodaloo do at the end, which he thought was the thing. I always thought it was the way I said Bellator breakdown. That is neither here nor there. Before we crack in, guys, please do leave a like on the video if you are enjoying the content. Leave a comment. Good comment, bad comment. I completely appreciate I did not react in the most, emotionally intelligent manner to our first negative comment. I got really defensive on our last video. That will not happen in the future. I will understand that people are entitled to their opinions, and I will get less defensive. So bring them on. Give us your opinions, guys, and let us know what content you'd like to see us talk more about.
Have you commented on it, or are you just talking about? Because I thought you handled it well on the episode. I thought last week was a good episode as well.
It was a good episode last week.
No, to be honest, positive comments. To be honest,
I didn't want to write anything because I thought you handled it really well on the response.
Thank you. I tried to. I was going for diplomatic, but it's lots of people set up the takedown that way, but when you go for it immediately, that a dozier fighter might read that as, oh yeah, we're going for a glove touch. So I see it kind of in between the way the pair of you see it. So that I thought it was easier to be diplomatic because it's kind of what I believed in.
Yeah, that's reasonable. And to be fair, as we said last week, we're not experts, but we're not as bad as the MMA Guru. So we're not that level of dickhead. So that's one thing. Although, have you seen this? Just before we get into Bellator, have you seen that the MMA Guru? Do you know this guy on YouTube? I think I've mentioned him a couple of times.
I think you have, yeah. I've seen clips come up, but I never really click on it.
He's really starting to piss off quite a few UFC fighters, and the problem is that they're now mentioning him in videos online, which obviously only
in the way that Helwani pissed fighters off back in the day, or
No, because the thing is, he's high. What he is he's extremely opinionated. So, and he'll just say the thing that's in his mind. So he won't hold back on criticizing Aljamain Sterling and be very vocal about it. He won't hold back on opinion on a whole bunch of things, judging results. And listen, he's talking from a fan's perspective, but obviously he's become popular enough that fighters are now hearing this opinion, and they're hearing it kind of mixed into the YouTube world where you have a lot of ex-fighters on there. So I think they kind of take that as, dude, you've never even done this professionally. How dare you say this kind of stuff?
That is the counterpoint. Do you know how hard MMA is? But like something like criticizing judging, I'm like, well, yeah, the standard on that should be higher. So I don't know how bad that one is.
It's also, he's had this thing with Dan Hardy, even though he really respects Dan Hardy as an analyst. And Dan Hardy did some video talking about him with Mark Goddard for like an hour, apparently, that then got deleted off YouTube. And somebody's made the Guru aware that this happened. So he started like a DM conversation with Dan Hardy, just being like, hey, I heard you were talking about a 10-minute video I did for an hour and a half. I'd really like to see it. With Dan Hardy being like, oh, I don't know, man, you seem like your mental state is already on the edge enough as it is. I wouldn't want to push you over. But obviously this is all fueling him. Like, what these guys don't understand is that, like, you know, if you're not in the world, this is what you want. You want feedback.
I don't know. I haven't actually seen this guy, so I need to check this out. Maybe. He's sometimes making the time for a bit. Go on.
He goes from funny to outrageous to making some good points to saying things it's not so much the points that he makes, because listen, we're all fans. We all have a difference of opinion. And listen, I get it. When I shout on Khamzat Chimaev, that comes from a place of me personally not being a fan of that guy. So I am going to be biased in that regard. But I think it's the kind of tone that he takes a little bit. Like, you know, we all know that it's a little bit suspect that Usman in his mid-30s suddenly developed the best cardio and strength without any negatives that you've ever seen, as well as having some weird acne and all the rest. But the MMA Guru will like lead the charge on something like that, if you see what I mean. Or, you know, quite often he'll take a viewpoint of, I'll give you an example. He was shitting on Glover Teixeira a lot ahead of the fight against Prochaska. Not because he doesn't like Glover Teixeira, but just saying that he's we don't want a fan like him. He's not going to bring numbers in. We need an exciting guy, you know, for the sake of the sport. This guy has to lose and all this kind of stuff. And that's where I'm a bit like, and that's just a personal thing. I don't like this idea of like trying to hope for like an outcome that's going to get, you know, the most clicks or something like that. Yeah. Because quite often I feel, you know, apart from Conor McGregor, a lot of the stars that they've really tried to push haven't really grasped. It's much more of an organic thing that somebody becomes a star.
I mean, definitely. There's some of the biggest stars, like the UFC are pretty good at letting people just kind of represent themselves if they can do it well. I think like the Diaz brothers as well, they're kind of stars from the get-go, and they've always just been themselves. It's different to McGregor. In a lot of ways, it's kind of the opposite. Although there's still a lot of shit talking, obviously, and starting fights outside of the cage or inside of the cage, but not part of the scheduled fight kind of thing. I remember the melee with Miller. Anyway, we digress.
We digress.
Bellator 285. Dublin. Peter Queally, not 51. Fighting Benson Henderson. Getting there.
Close to 51.
Yeah. Good fucking fight, man. Good fucking
he's getting
fight.
It done at the moment, man.
Yeah. I mean, Queally, I was really interested to see how he was going to handle Henderson's wrestling. And for the most part, he was able to handle it. But it meant that basically Ben was just constantly dictating the pace of the fight, controlling the areas of the fight. When he really needed the takedown, he was able to get it. And just... he basically won every round, bar the round he lost a point for the low blow. Which was a bad low blow. I did think the ref was like... he is not the same man he was. Like, I have to take a point. And, fair enough, he did lose that round.
I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. And then the following three. But aside from that low blow, pretty flawless performance. Patricio awaits. And they've also got Bellator 286 this weekend. AJ McKee stepping up to 155 to fight Spark Carlisle on a 5-run jaunt since leaving the UFC, including wins in Cage Warriors, Bellator, and Ryzen. So, 155 starting to look a bit more fun. Obviously, Peter Queally was the last man to fight for the title, the vacant belt losing to Patricio, who he had previously beat as well, so he kind of fancied himself to get back in the mix right away. Henderson says no.
Does that put Henderson back in with a shot at the title?
Yes, very much so. I would say Henderson, I think it's 2-fight win streak after a very slow start, including losses at welterweight, but looking good. Beating, former title contenders. You've got to say 155 at Bellator is reasonably wide open. Obviously AJ McKee stepping up, Spike Carlisle's kind of thought of as being a real prospect now. So either Henderson fights the winner of this weekend's action or probably lines him up. Henderson goes fast and then winner stays on to fight whoever is victorious in McKee Carlisle.
It's crazy to think, man. This was a guy who was the WEC champ?
Yep.
Way back in the day?
Yeah, and one of the last WEC champs. He had those 2 fucking wars with Anthony Pettis. The Showtime kick, the Showtime knee. Those are good fights.
The second fight was in the UFC, no?
I don't know if that was the third fight or the second. Jesus Christ. Let me look it up.
Because I know that Pettis beat him twice, once for the WEC title and once for the UFC title.
So, got to scroll down a long way to get to these, Yeah, you're right. It was just the one. Maybe they were both in the same fight then. So yeah, he lost the belt to Pettis in the last lightweight WEC championship fight. Pettis came over to the UFC with him, and then after winning the UFC belt, loses it.
Because Pettis was meant to fight for the title, but he ends up taking some weird fight against Clay Guida on short notice and just getting completely dominated. Henderson moves ahead of him, beats Frankie Edgar twice in a row, I think, and that's when Pettis then fights him and subs him.
Yeah, man.
You know what? Here's the thing. I know the reason why Henderson isn't quite remembered in the same way as other UFC champions, and it's because those Frankie fights are a little. Not everybody thinks he won those fights, but you'd have to say, I mean, you look at the guy, champ in the WEC, defending champ in the UFC. If he was to even just get a title shot all these years later at Bellator, I mean, winning it would just be a different level, but just to get a title shot, you kind of do have to talk about this guy as one of the real great MMA fighters of his generation.
Oh,
in the same way,
very much a model of like the modern fighter as well. One of the first to kind of effectively use like the calf kicks, mixing in very good, educated stand up with the takedowns. Being a well-rounded fighter, he is one of the pioneers of the kind of current era of, I suppose more these days it has gone a bit more wrestle heavy, but certainly the idea of the well-rounded approach and being able to mix wrestling in with striking in with wrestling, so you can constantly be a dangerous threat.
Absolutely. I mean, the calf kicks was basically, he was one of the first people to introduce it, as you say. But it is funny. It's like you get these guys. It's like, I feel like Eddie Alvarez is kind of in this corridor as well, where, champ at Bellator, champ in the UFC, but almost because it's spread across different promotions, it's like it doesn't get accumulated the same way as when a guy just does it in the UFC, which is weird.
Yeah, although I think it's getting less so. Because now we have kind of more established kind of like tier one promotions. So you
True.
understand that if someone is champion at Ryzen, One FC, PFL, Bellator, that they're of a very good level, and they're certainly some of these champions are certainly at a UFC level. So,
But dude, I mean, look at Ryzen, man. Like, former champion from Ryzen Nemkov becomes Bellator champion. Former Ryzen champion Prochaska is currently the UFC champion.
yeah, and fucking Manel Karp may well get his shit together yet.
Hey, he's looking pretty dangerous these days. Couple of bad fights at the start, but putting it together.
Yeah,
So no, I think
I hyped him up. Remember when he came in, I was like, "This is my guy. He's gonna fucking do things," and then he was just not fighting first round of any of these fights, making me look a fool.
yeah. Do you know what the worst part was? I didn't put any money down against him until he started putting it together, and then I bet against him twice.
Oh,
it's just like Josh has been sold a turkey here. Josh has been sold an absolute turkey. It's not going to work out.
I've watched his fights. He's a good fighter. Just he just slow start, but I guess in his UFC career, round one's over now, so it's on to the good shit.
He's the guy that came over from Bellator, and in Bellator he was literally like an axe murderer. He beat Chandler twice, and then he came to the UFC, Will Brooks, and he could not buy a win.
Yeah. Shit, sometimes it just happens that way. He was a good fighter. Just some of those fights.
Sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yeah. It's having a good career is more than being talented and working hard. You also just have to. You have to get these like key moments sometimes in fights. These small advantages go your way. If you do it consistently, you'll be an absolute legend. But it's just getting it right when you need it.
Hey man, look at Leon Edwards. How different is his story if he doesn't land that kick with 56 seconds to go?
Yeah,
One moment.
It was getting close to the bell.
There's a reason people walk out to Eminem, man. It's because they understand that in the fight game, one moment, one opportunity really can make or break you. It's very relevant music.
Yeah, knees weak, mum spaghetti. All right.
Let's talk some middleweight. Let's talk some Yoel Romero, because I know that he was this light heavyweight.
Light heavyweight, yeah.
Oh, that was good for both guys. But let's talk some Yoel Romero either way, because man, I know the last guy he fought was just there to get hit basically, and I know Melvin Manhoof is old, but Yoel Romero is also old, and he won like every minute of this fight.
Yeah, it was very much a kind of classic Romero fight. Keep it slow, don't take any risks towards the end of the round, have a nice flurry, counter when necessary. He just kind of kept it at a slow grinding pace that Melvin fairly happy to accept, thinking he only really kind of want to get one key moment in here. Fucking when he got him down though, and he started unloading those elbows, Jesus Christ. There was no question of, is he just going to try and ride out this position and just take a decision here? It was, Yoel's going for a finish. And quite a savage finish it was. Those elbows are fucking nasty.
Savage. You say it's classic Romero. I thought he wrestled a lot more in this than I've seen him do in the past. There was a willingness to wrestle. And, I mean, really, once he did that, he was just... He hit so hard, man. I just kept thinking when I was watching that, like, how many heavy hitters has Melvin seen across, like, 30 years of his life? And Romero lands a couple of these punches, a couple of these shots, and the reaction from Melvin was just like, what the fuck has just hit me? How is this probably 50-year-old man still got this kind of power and explosion?
Yeah, man, he fucking burnt out Whitaker. Like, it's he's a different kind of human being. So
I'd argue that
was doing well. I mean, this guy's like fucking insane. he chased down those burglars.
That was a great story.
Punched in the window. He's a scary fucking dude in his own right.
Well, dude, that was the reason that this fight got rebooked, because they had to pull it back because he fucking cut his arm open, punching glass. Beast of a man, though. Beast of a man. I almost wanted to start the podcast with Romero's barking at the camera afterwards, but probably better that we didn't.
You can recreate it if you want.
Nah, it's all good. The moment's passed. That is my viewership of the card over. So you're going to take over for the rest of our Bellator breakdown.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. Liam McCourt, Diana Silva, competitive fight. McCourt's slick. Silva could be a bit more savage. To be honest, I didn't think it was that close, but I had Silva winning the fight, and the judges gave it to McCourt. What do I know? Mads Burnell, Pedro Carvalho. Maybe the best fight of the night. I really enjoyed this one. Mads burnt his tank early. Carvalho had a very cultured, varied attack. Very professional. Burnell tired out. Easy decision for Carvalho. Still a fun fight and a nice fight. Rafael Hudson, Kieran Clark. What can you say about Kieran Clark? He doesn't look like a very well-rounded fighter, but at the same time, 6-0 now. Keeps submitting people. Maybe there's something to it. His way of pulling guard is to kind of get knocked down. He was getting his ass kicked in this fight. He did do well to get a nice knockdown with a weird jab when Hudson was kind of jumping up for a flying knee. Did well to tap him in the third. Maintains that undefeated record. Always gets his ass kicked. He must learn from this. And opening up the main card, last one I'll talk about. Carl Moore against Carl Albertson.
Good job pronunciation.
Thank you. Moore, obviously, been out for a few years now. Definitely was very rusty. Albertson seems to be kind of slow to get into the fight. There was little head movement or any defense from either man. But Albertson was kind of pushing forward for most of it. So towards the end of the first round, kind of started to snap out of it. Landed a fucking brutal elbow that dropped Moore. Almost had this fight finished. I can't remember the name of the English commentator at Bellator, but he legit thought the fight was over for a while. Like, to the point that it was almost embarrassing. Anyway, Moore comes back in the second. Did well to tap Albertson. Good to have Carl Moore back. So, nice. At least a couple of the Irish lads on the main card won. Oh, and not that anyone really cares apart from me, but Brett the Pikey Johns picked up his second Bellator win. See Brett moving forward.
Very nice. Obviously, things did not work out for him very well in the UFC, so hopefully Bellator is kind to him.
He was actually doing really well. It was just like Bellator offered more money when he hit free agency.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, he had lost 1 or 2 fights, but against pretty decent opposition, and he'd also got some big wins. And I think he was like 4-2, or I have to kind of look it up now. I can't guess. But he was doing well in the UFC.
Okay.
Had some great submissions as well. I remember he got that calf slicer on Joe Soto. Oh no, the battery's dying in my mouse. So yeah, dropped 3. We won 5. All right, so I wasn't too far off. Sorry, 1-6, 7. So he was 7-3 in the UFC. So
that's fucking decent, man.
And the losses were Aljo, Pedro Munoz, both decisions, and Danny Sabatello, also decision.
Not bad.
Wait, hang on.
It's a bit...
I'm not gonna lie. I had an edible. All right, the weeds kicked in. I was counting the Bellator fights. It was 5-3. I just see the green on the record. Just like, go 5-3. Still, fucking reasonable.
I'm also stoned, but I didn't eat an edible, so I'm just sort of like remaining a more progressive stoned. Whereas Josh has basically just had a wave of THC roll into his subdermal hemocortex.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
I don't even know if that's the correct way. Like, I just said a couple of words that I think sound like brain because I'm stoned.
Oh, I wasn't
So
listening.
that could have been entirely
trying
wrong.
to sound encouraging.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Should we move on to next week's Bellator while we're in our Bellator breakdown phase?
Hell yeah, because it's lightweight galore. Next week, I really hope those sounds aren't coming up. I made the mistake of plugging
Isn't
the
it
new
featherweight?
No.
Isn't the title fight featherweight?
Oh yeah, sorry, my bad. Yeah, the title fight is lightweight, but with last week's lightweight and next week's lightweight, that's my lightweight galore. I had an edible. But yeah, all right. Topping off the cards, Patricio Pitbull. He's not fighting AJ McKee next. It's Adam Boric. This is a dangerous fucking fight at 145, as Matt correctly said. I don't even know what the odds are on this one, but I'd be interested to see. Because Boric is like a fucking legit fucking featherweight. He is really good. Let me try and pick up some of his bigger wins here. Pat Curran, Mads Burnell, Aaron Pico. The kid's fucking good. The only fight he lost got submitted by Darian Caldwell. No shame there. Interesting fight. And obviously Patricio is still one of the best fighters in Bellator. So this could be a really good fucking battle. I hope I ain't jinx that. It's got to be good.
What do you feel Boric needs to do to get the win?
Honestly, use his length and be aggressive. Don't let Pitbull bully him. Back him up. I think it's going to be... I think both fighters... Well, I don't think Boric is going to want to get into a scrap necessarily. But I think he needs to try and earn Pitbull's respect early on in the fight. And Pitbull's going to want to come out and go quite fast. As he always does. I think it's survive the initial onslaught and try and dictate the distance and the pace for Boric. That would be... I think the game plan will loosely be something along those lines.
Well, Pitbull's beatable.
Yeah. Yeah, McKee.
There's blueprints there. It's really the rematch you don't want to go against Pitbull. Oh, sure. You beat him the first time. It's the rematch where he's going to start taking you a bit more seriously. Moving down the card, big question I have here with AJ McKee is, do you think he is as dangerous at lightweight as he is at featherweight, or do you think he is more dangerous? Or do you just think that it makes no difference at the age that he's at?
It's going to be interesting to see. I don't think he's like necessarily going to be slower. I think if he puts on like the right kind of muscle, potentially he could be faster in his, when he's actually moving forward, although probably burning more energy. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how he feels out at 155. And obviously Spike Carlisle, like I said earlier, that's he's being kind of considered a prospect. This potentially could line up a title shot or an eliminator shot. I haven't even looked at the rankings for 155, but I still don't. I'm not at a point where I can take the Bellator rankings seriously yet. Give it time.
When's that fight? Is that the week after?
Huh? What, AJ McKee?
Yeah.
That's the co-main. That's this weekend.
Oh, I couldn't see it on the fight card. I was getting a bit confused when you were talking about it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. For some reason, it wasn't showing up on the thing I was looking at. So I was just like, is Josh really just so stoned that he's confusing this as like the main event for next week or for the week following or something like that? So I thought I'd double check. But rather than say it's not appearing on the list, I thought I'd try and find a diplomatic way of confirming
that's definitely co-main. I've also got Aaron Pico, Jeremy Kennedy, Juan Archuleta against Enrique Barzola. That would be
actually a decent lineup.
Yeah, it's a pretty good card this weekend.
Oh shit, Max Rushkov is on this.
Yeah.
How's life? I haven't seen him fight. The last fight I saw was his one UFC fight. Do you know how life has gone for him?
Yeah,
UFC.
He had 2 fights. I think they were both in America, but for Cage Warriors. And 2 wins. And yeah, now picked up by Bellator. So Yeah.
Probably a good move.
Yeah, I know.
If he's ever going to go back to the UFC, it's going to have to be one of those, like, you're signed as a star situations.
Yeah, well, I think, like, it seems like he's got his head straight. If he keeps doing the business, I'm sure the UFC would consider taking him back. And it was just, one bad night. Just one enough performance.
The question I would have, though, is if you're Max Rushkov, are you dying to get back into the UFC, considering that they literally shat all over you the one time that you were there?
I don't know. I think if he's got his head on straight, he's probably not going to overthink it. I think he'll just sort of be accountable for his performance and put it behind him. So I honestly think having taken the time off and he talked about it. I can't remember which web publication I read it on. Talks about how he got depressed. He's just eating like shit, just living in, like, I think, a coach's pool house or something. And now he's not doing that. I'm sure he's grateful for being able to bring in income again. So I imagine he'll go wherever they're paying the most. So to be honest, you're right. If he was going to go back to the UFC, it would have to be as a star. It would have to be at a point where the UFC were going to pay slightly more than the next guy, which that has to be quite a lot. They have to really be ready to break the bank to kind of outbid the likes of PFL, Bellator, Ryzen, ONE FC. It has to be like a big
PFL are putting some big money down at the moment. See who else they picked up recently?
Oh my god, I did, and I was impressed, and I've forgotten now. Thor.
What does Thor have?
Oh, Thiago Santos. Maheta. At least I got that it was fucking Thor. Or that it was a
That's
hammer.
what I was hoping you'd get. So initially I was thinking hammer, and then I thought maybe if I'm doing the Thunder Sound, he'll get Thor, and then from Thor, he'll be able to get hammer. So there was logic. And when you got there, it worked. Good signing for them, man. And to be honest, I think good move for Maheta, because he was one fight away from getting cut anyway. Didn't sound like the UFC were too upset to cancel his remaining fights on the contract for the move.
Yeah, I think it's just respect, isn't it? He's got a kid, makes some big money, raise a family.
Well, also, it's like, are you gonna fight for the title again? Probably not. Is that, as a result, mean that you're going to earn the kind of money you're hoping to here? Probably not. I'll say this for PFL, though. This needs to work for them. If they sign all of these big names, if they pay them big contracts, if they're putting big money out for the wins and people don't tune in, it will eventually fall apart. And that's been an issue with higher paying promotions previously that have tried to do things the right way.
It depends how their model's structured.
It hasn't always worked out.
Most of their events are available for free, right? I think a lot of their
PFL.
money must come. Yeah, I think a lot of their money must come from ticket revenue and from sponsorship. Which, to be honest, you're getting up front. So even if, like, the previous season sucked ass, if they sign big names again, they'll probably still sell for tickets and get the sponsorship. So if their revenue models, like, built heavily on stuff like that, which, to be honest, with the amount they spend on fighter pay, can't be right. They must be getting some insane sponsorship deals if they are. It seems unrealistic, but
it feels to me like they're investing heavily to try and get past a hump. My worry would be if they don't get past that hump, they end up falling by the wayside, and then it disincentivizes the UFC and even to a certain extent to Bellator from feeling that they have the competition necessary to purse their own wallets up a little bit.
Maybe, but that's successful. The biggest thing they need to do is, because it doesn't matter if they have great fighters, they need to have big name fighters in there as well to get the eyes on them, and they are doing that. They are successfully doing that. So I think
I'll tell you what's helped. They've had guys come over who have been soundly beaten by guys that they already had, which in turn has helped those guys get better reputations and bigger names. I think if a Rory McDonald or an Anthony Pettis had shown up and just wiped the floor with everybody, there might have been a feeling that this isn't a high-level promotion.
Yeah, yeah, and Brendan Lucknow was passed over on Contender Series. Stevie Ray's kicking ass after being released.
Good things.
Yeah,
good things all
they've,
around.
they've definitely got some good fighters. Big name fighters, make everything seem a lot better. Obviously, Kayla Harrison helps. But
whatever happened? Do you remember when there was that big announcement? I can't remember what the name was, but this was like a couple of years ago, maybe even longer. There was the announcement of another company that was going to be getting heavy investments, and they were going to be doing something that they described as much more of a kind of taking the sign from Bellator, but really making like a regular and playoff style format, having it function the way that like an actual league functions in the States. And I haven't heard anything since then. One of the things they spoke about was a 50% revenue to the fighters, though. So that's something that I've got to try and look this up. Maybe if
well, that is standard practice in Major League Sports. Is 50% of revenue does get paid out in contracts. Yeah, and it means you have basically like guaranteed fights for the year, as opposed to the much more nefarious tactics of the other organizations. Mostly
it's tricky
what
though.
in the UFC.
I always feel the issue with trying to do like a regular season though is that there's so many injuries with fighters. You never know how long a guy's going to need off from one fight to the next based on how the fight goes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can regulate it to the same level of certainty.
Oh yeah, it doesn't. Okay, I don't think it makes the product better, per se. But it is interesting with the point system, particularly if you know you need to get a first round finish to have any chance in your second fight. And again, I just like the way that as a fighter, you can get a lucrative contract, and if you stay healthy, you know you're going to make X amount of money this year. And if you win the final, it's X plus 1 plus $1 million. Like, pretty fucking cool. So the opportunity for the fighter, that's what I really like about it. I just feel like the athlete is taken care of then. If you get injured, fucking sucks, but that is what it is. But that would be the same in any organisation. At least with this, if you have a good run of form, lucky enough to stay healthy enough to get through till the end, you know exactly how much you're going to make. You know exactly how many times you're going to fight, when you're going to fight, roughly. It makes it so much more a credible professional sport from a fighter's point of view in that format. But yeah. It is what it is.
You need to have a different model than boxing to base everything around, though.
That's true.
Talking about boxing, I know that you don't really watch the fights. Did you see the knockout over the weekend? Joe Joyce knocking out Joseph Parker.
I haven't seen that one. I saw a very interesting, weird one, but I haven't seen the Joyce Parker one. I saw you watch it. I saw that.
Yeah, I was watching the highlights of it before we tuned on. Good knockout, man. Joe Joyce, he's from Putney, dude. He's from round my old ends in London. Didn't take up boxing until he was like 24 or something like that.
How old is he now? Is early 30s?
Mid-30s. He went to the Olympics. He got a silver at the Olympics in his 20s. But obviously he didn't go pro until much later in his life. But man, he's just knocked out a former world champ. I mean, for a guy that didn't box until he was in his 20s, man, it's hell of an achievement what he's doing right now.
I'm going to check it
I think he only ever lost to Usyk at amateur level.
That's impressive. That is impressive.
And he's, as a result, desperately wanted that fight back ever since. I believe light heavyweight. Joe Joyce, he used to be much more slender. Like, he basically was slender, then he became a bit of a fat heavyweight. Now he's an athletic heavyweight that still has dynamite in his hands, but can just go for 12 rounds.
Absolutely.
It's kind of weird watch. He's big, but he's not like Anthony Joshua big.
Okay, right.
He's not like...
I was starting, because I was like, I'm pretty sure I've seen like highlights of his fights before, and there's like a guy I've kind of got in mind. Like I would have thought like 6'1" or something. I mean, it's
Nice.
like
Let me look it up.
obviously you could get down to like. I mean, you 6'1". Obviously, he could be down to like heavyweight.
Joyce, I'm looking at him now. He's massive. Ignore me. He's absolutely massive. He's a giant. 6 foot. He's 1 meter 98.
Is that 6'6", 6'7"?
Yeah, he's a big boy. Completely ignore me.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. He's absolutely gigantic. 6 foot. Well, 6'6". Still pretty fucking big. He's very. It's weird though. Like when you see him box,
that he was down at light heavyweight. Then, to be honest.
Very impressive. When you see him box, it might have been cruiserweight. Sorry, it might have been cruiserweight. I was thinking light heavyweight in terms of MMA, but the next one down from heavyweight, under 200 pounds. Very stiff though, man. It's like you see him box, and it's a little bit. He still kind of boxes like somebody that knows what he's meant to do, but it's not fluid or natural. But I suppose when you hit hard and you can take punches, it doesn't really matter. It's 6'6".
So he's kind of like the thunder to Deontay Wilder's lightning.
Yeah, he's not as explosive. And it's not the same one-shot knockout power. He's more of a thudder. But he's got a good jab. He's got a really nice jab. And he pops it very well. So he's clearly well-trained. And then he's got the power when it's there. But it's clearly more of that, like, each shot is like a hammer chipping away at the wall. Rather than, like, the one lightning strike that takes the whole thing down. As I carry my analogy through.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right, do you talk some NFL? Was there any more boxing?
To be honest, that's all the boxing I watch, man. And we're not really a boxing show, so I feel like it's nice to talk about some boxing when it's a big fight, when we've seen it. But seeing as it's not a passion of yours, it's not something I want to force onto the podcast. I just like mentioning these sort of like news-related cool little things when they happen. Like Canelo last week, it's just a big event, or when Joshua fought Usyk, or when Fury next fights, is worth discussing.
Actually, I did see Fury said the deadline's passed for AJ. Said he's moving on.
Yes, I don't think I don't know if either of those guys want to fight each other, man. It's weird.
Yeah, and AJ said it's with the lawyers, so I think that's just going to be bullshit news for another month, and then he'll fight someone else, I guess.
That's why we don't talk about boxing that much. But let's talk about some NFL, which is still a horrifically run sport, but at least it runs like clockwork. Eagles, Dolphins, only undefeated teams left. Heads top of the NFC and the AFC, both with quarterbacks from Alabama, both drafted in the 2020 draft, and both have basically been shat on for 2 years by a bunch of people who have nothing to do with their organizations.
Whoa. I don't know what. Yeah, maybe these people outside of the Eagles fan base and organization were shitting on Hurts. Everyone else was like, well, yeah, he did enough last year. We want to see what he does this year. The way he's stepping up this year is insane, though.
He looks good. Looks real good.
He's looking fucking fantastic. And just the team overall. The entire team.
Brown.
So much better than last year. AJ Brown, Smitty, Quez Watkins, Swole Batman, Skinny Batman, and Fast Batman, as fucking Slay calls them. Yeah, you got Goddard. We've also got Zach Pascal, came up with some big plays and some big blocks last week. And gave him that weird rush, though. Fucking Goddard, Calcaterra. I feel like I'm forgetting someone.
Well, you've also got Miles Sanders at running back, and you've got that whole thing coming on. You've got a beast of an offensive line. You've got a defensive line that can rush the passer. You've got Slay. You've got Gardner. You've got a team this year, man. You have got a genuine, no bullshit, fucking team. Yeah, the only thing that would make me nervous about
you like,
you got Gardner Johnson.
No, he's all right. He's getting there. We're okay at safety. Going into training camp, we look pretty fucking shit at safety. Coming out of training camp, we look okay.
Do you want to know something crazy, though? So, if Jalen Hurts continues having the season he's having at the moment, and Tua just keeps playing lights out fucking football, which he's done for the last 2 weeks, just not so much last week. It was more of a bloody, brutal kind of like slugfest, like war of attrition type game. Still made some beautiful plays, great stat numbers. The guys that you would have had at quarterback who came out of the 2020 draft is Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Tua, Jalen Hurts, and right now it looks like you could have 4 of those guys that are all their franchise QB. That has got to be one of the best strike rates of quarterbacks in an NFL draft for like the top.
Since that one with like Elway, Marino, everyone in between.
Yeah, because you look back, the Kyler Murray year draft, the only other guy was Daniel Jones and Drew Lock, and pretty much the jury's still out on one of them, and the jury's definitely out on the other. The Baker Mayfield year, 2018, okay, Josh Allen and Lamar have worked out, but the 2 guys picked ahead of them, the 3 guys picked further ahead of them were total trash. 2017 was who was 2017? No, that was a great year. That you have so you have in that year Trubisky, who's a disaster, Deshaun Watson, who for 4 years looked like a great fucking pick, and then other situations have happened and the jury's out, and obviously Mahomes, who's brilliant, but still not a great strike rate. And then the Wentz and Goff year. I mean, really, I feel like the jury's out on those guys.
Yeah, I mean, Wentz did win an MVP.
He didn't. He never won an MVP.
Played like an MVP. And did get us to a point where Nick Foles could make a playoff run. You know,
this is true.
He can do it. I think just the more he gets his head straight, and it does seem like he's growing up every year, the more he can get his head straight, and I think the more coachable he can become. I think he has got the skill set. I think he can be a pretty fucking good quarterback. I'm glad he doesn't fucking play for us anymore.
That is very understandable. That's the real, litmus test, isn't it? It's like, it's all well and good, saying is the guy good for another team. It's whether or not you'd want him at your team.
Yeah. Yeah, not everyone feels the same way about these things. Try to set myself up. I'm happy with that. Wentz. Foles won the Super Bowl.
And you got your guy now, man. You got your guy. He's young. He's dynamic. He's exciting. The only thing the Dolphins have had, so I feel like our 3-0 was against harder teams than you've played, but I also feel that you guys have kind of dominated 2 teams and offensively looked really good against the third. And we've had these like weird, brutal kind of close game against the Bills, miraculous comeback against the Ravens. Like I still feel with us, there's a lot of circumstances around the win. I'd quite like to see us get 2 or 3 wins where we just dominate and look like we are a top side before I start thinking like, okay, this is going to be a really good season. But we've got short week Bengals. We're definitely going to lose that game. Our team got 100 degrees, high humidity. Everybody got injured, beating the Bills. That came at a cost. So we're going to lose that. But then we got Vikings at home, Steelers at home, Lions away, Bears away, Browns at home, Texans at home. That's a win streak. I mean, those are all games that you have to look at and say Dolphins are expected to win.
Yeah, we're looking pretty good, maybe all the way up to the bye week. To be honest, we could be 6-1, 7-0. We've got like a good shot in that, but it's still like we've got a pretty easy schedule this year. Even if we were going into the playoffs 17-0, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not gonna get too big headed here. We had a soft schedule, so
that's reasonable to say.
But
it could be worse though.
You're definitely right when you say you've beat 3 better teams. Although I am starting to wonder how good the Lions are this year, and I'm really fucking glad that the Saints keep losing because we've got their first round pick.
Oh, you're going high with that pick, mate.
I hope
Winston
so.
looks useless.
Again, early days.
They just haven't. True, true. I'll tell you who you don't want to be right now, though, is the Raiders.
I've
0-3.
only really followed the Eagles. Oh, really?
0-3 with Devontae Adams, and they spent millions on him, and they got Chandler Jones, and they gave Derek Carr a big new contract, and they hired Josh McDaniels as the head coach, even though it was a disaster at Denver, to the point that the general manager, the former general manager of Denver, apparently had a phone call with the GM for the Raiders and just said, I don't think you should hire this guy. He said, well, that's something I'm not going to trust. And afterwards it was just like, no, really, you don't know what you've done. And, they were expected to do good things. They're in the hardest division and they could be in for a nightmare season.
How do we get their first round pick? Come on, Howie, make it happen.
The problem is they never like to trade their first round picks. Instead, what they do is they make really weird picks with their first round picks.
Yeah.
It's like they once picked a kicker.
Yeah.
In the first round.
Yeah,
and the weird thing is, many of their first round picks do really well. It's just that they are never players that you had to pick in the first round.
Well,
it's like, who was a Pro Bowl kicker
mentality
for us?
There's the story of they're down, they need a touchdown to win. The phone on the sidelines rings. It's from the owner's box. It's Al Davis. Throw it deep. So they have to throw it deep. But then they make the throw. He goes for a touchdown. They win the game. And he's like, yeah, I'm Al Davis. I'm a fucking genius. It's like, no, you're Al Davis. You're overbearing. Don't interfere anymore.
You know what? I really wish that I was alive and watched the NFL during the Al Davis years because I feel like they would have been highly entertaining.
Well, we were alive.
It's like
at the tail end of them.
Yeah, but I wasn't watching NFL.
Ah, okay. Do you know there's a lot of good Al Davis crops up in a lot of documentaries and things. There's a lot of good ones you can go back and check out.
Well, I feel like he was just the guy who just constantly thought that everyone wanted him to lose. He literally was just convinced that and loved this idea of no one wants us to win. We've got everyone against us. The refs are against us. It's like, you won 3 fucking Super Bowls. How against you could they be?
Yeah.
It's a little bit
he saw the world his way.
It's like a fraction of the enjoyment I get from just I was talking to my dad about this yesterday. I was saying I love Jerry Jones as the Cowboys owner, as long as I'm not somebody who's a fan of the Cowboys. Because if you're not a fan of the Cowboys, he's fucking hilarious to have in the league. But it must be the most infuriating experience if you're a Cowboys fan to just have this billionaire man-child basically playing the NFL version of Football Manager in real life. He's just does whatever he wants.
The thinking man's Al Davis is still a fucking idiot.
Yeah. But again, he won 3 Super Bowls.
That was before fucking salary caps and shit. Same for Davis.
Yeah, but he did it on the back of a draft. Fucking Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker is to blame for the entire success of the Cowboys because some idiot, I think it was the Vikings, traded their entire draft to move up and get Herschel Walker. And it was from that draft that the Cowboys basically put together the roster that ended up forming a dynasty.
Yeah, but at what cost? You ever heard the one about Michael Irvin stabbing someone in the neck with scissors in the barbershop?
Well, didn't Michael Irvin also get accused of banging hookers and doing cocaine in the White House?
Yeah. Yeah, he was fully just doing cocaine his whole career.
Not the White House where the president is. The Cowboys have a playhouse called the White House for players to basically fuck prostitutes and be away from their wives.
And the fucking neck thing is true apparently. The scissors, could have killed that guy. There's another player on the team.
Well, it's not exactly held back his broadcasting career, has it?
No, when Jerry Jones pays for something to go away, it really fucking goes away.
Yeah, he's paid all of those illegitimate children that keep popping up to go away.
He knows what he's doing. Or he doesn't, because he's an idiot. But still.
Who are you playing this weekend?
Jaguars.
Tough game.
Gonna see Doug.
He's
Doug's
doing well.
Revenge game. I think theoretically a very winnable game for us. Defensively, it's going to be different. Gannon's going to have to come out with another good game plan. I'm going to let it go on the Lions thing. The Lions just have a good offensive line. It was more us not being able to get anything going, any pressure going, being able to stop the run game, than it was Gannon not knowing what he was doing, which is what it looked like the previous year. Hassan Reddick's got his hands on the ball a few times. Maybe he can draw back into coverage. What the fuck do I know? Just going to let it be. I think we're going to win.
Is it?
I think we're going to win.
Are you on the road or at home?
No, I think we're on the road. But again, I looked at it on Google, so I don't know if I just assumed that Google would run it normally, which they don't do. Who have you got this week?
We're short week, man. We got to follow a brutal game. Brutal game away at the Bengals. And the problem is everybody's banged up. So, I mean, this game against the Bills, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, huge humidity. I mean, the Bills were falling left, right, and center. They had nothing left by the end of it. I think their offense was on the field for 41 minutes, 90 plays. It was one of those games where it literally came down to who has got that like microcosm of energy left in the tank to just get that final play. And to be honest, they were in position to win it, but like Josh Allen underthrew a couple of passes, and you can't blame the guy. He threw it 63 times. He had nothing left in the sun. He rushed the ball a further 16 times. He got sacked 5 times. I mean, the Bills are going to destroy that man. They use him up like there is no tomorrow. I mean, my 2 favorite moments after the game, you know how the quarterbacks always like have a handshake or a hug?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, Josh Allen is 6'6", and Tua's 6 foot. So for them to embrace, Josh Allen has to kneel down. And he was so broken from losing this game at the end. And particularly because they lost, they had a final drive and they couldn't get the ball out of bounds, couldn't spike the ball before the clock died. He doesn't hug Tua. He literally just like puts his head and just starts resting it onto his shoulder. And this is like a good 30 seconds, and he's on the verge of tears. And Tua is just like patting the back of his head and stroking him, and you can see his lips going like, "It's okay, buddy. You played really well. You'll be back next time. Don't worry." But better than anything else is the offensive coordinator for the Bills when they lost that game, Ken Dorsey, up in the coach's box. He literally loses his mind that the Bills have lost this game. Like, he picks up the iPad that they've got to communicate everything and just starts smashing it like repeatedly as hard as he can against the table until somebody realizes that there's the coaching camera on him. So very quickly, you see this go on for like 6 seconds, and then the hand just goes across. It's brilliant. And I'll tell you what, like, Bills are the best team in the NFL, in my opinion. But that's the kind of loss that can really mentally affect you. Like, you get loads of injuries, you're so close, you put so much into the game, and you don't come away from the win. I think we're going to learn a lot about the Bills coming up. We've also learned a lot about concussions, because apparently taking a hit to your head, standing up, immediately doing and then going back down to one knee is not a concussion, because Tua had that, went off the field, passed all concussion protocols apparently. When he came back, he was just like, yeah, it was my back. It's the weirdest thing. My back seized up. So all of a sudden I did some kind of like lost my balance.
I haven't. You told me about that at the time. I haven't seen the clip of it yet. But yeah, concussion protocols are just substandard across most sports. Obviously, rugby in the UK, we're trying to impose saliva tests. So it'd be nice if there could be something like reliable that could be rolled out. I think it would change a lot of things. But I don't know how much the NFL would want that, if I'm honest.
Yeah. What I would say is that the way he played afterwards was not suggestive that he had a concussion, because he played bloody well after he came back in. But he also came back in after Teddy Bridgewater came in for 3 plays and got sacked for a 10-yard loss and threw 2 5-yard completions into the ground in front of his receiver. So I think there might have been elements going in for halftime, just like, Tua, we're going to give you a mental test now. Do you have a concussion? No. Sounds good to me.
I mean, we know people can play well, perform well with concussions, but it's still, for sure, concussion. Well, I mean, I'm not saying it is for sure, but from what you described, it sounds like it was very likely to be concussion.
He got pushed back, hit the ground, and his head whiplashed into the back of the ground. Hey, listen.
I would assume so.
We won the game.
You won the game.
I don't know if you want to play him Thursday, man. I think you just put the reserves out and take that as an L, and then enjoy the week off. Like, fuck it, it's the Bengals away. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, I think though, the more likely thing is that I don't know. What's this new guy's name again? Brian.
Oh, the coach.
Yeah.
Oh no, Brian Flores got sacked.
No, sorry.
Mike McDaniel.
That's it. He seems like a reasonable guy. You think he's going to do it?
Good coach. He's a good coach. Liking him so far.
Bit interesting.
Pretty funny
choice to make. It's going to be a big decision if he does bench him. People worry a lot about quarterbacks getting benched.
I feel like they take that the wrong way. Like, I think maybe because I come from English football as my primary team sport that I grew up with, and there's so many games that you just don't think it's a weird thing. Like, you expect players to get rested for certain situations.
Yeah, no, you want your quarterback to be consistent and to be busy and to always be competing. You want your quarterback to be an ever-growing, ever-evolving, momentum-building machine. And you want your quarterback to push your team and lead your team, and you want your quarterback to be a part of the team's success always. So I understand why they have that. Let's see if that will help. That overreaction. Back in focus.
Back in focus. Change the subject very slightly. Moving away from the NFL. You watching anything good at the moment?
Not really. I'm just rewatching stuff at the moment. But a bit worn out with things. There's just been a lot of stuff to get done. So I've been purposely avoiding watching new things. Kay says the Dharma thing's pretty good though.
I haven't heard of that.
Oh, actually, do you know what though? Tell a lie. I have been watching House of the Dragon and Rick and Morty. So I've been watching
okay, so I haven't seen season 6 of Rick and Morty yet. Loving House of the Dragon. Where are you up to on House of the Dragon?
Up to date.
Up to date. Have you seen it with the new casting change?
Yes.
Did you find it jarring?
No, because they'd already done the big time jump in the other episode where it just jumped 3 years forward, which I kind of found a bit frustrating at the time. But at least I was then like, well, if they're not addressing it, then it means there's a lot they want to get done in this season. And they've got big, broad plans if it's going to expand past one season. Which, if they're putting this kind of budget into it, that's exactly what they want to build to, right?
My understanding is that the biggest issue they had with devising this season series, whatever, was where do you start? Because in the storyline, basically, there are these key things that happen that are extremely relevant to everything that then unfolds in the larger story. But in between them are very big time jumps. And this was something like there was an argument and there was sort of a conversation of, do we start the story on episode 6 and do like a longer prologue or try and fill in what's happened with light conversation? George R.R. Martin wanted to start the story at the beginning of the king that was in charge for 60 years. He wanted to start at the beginning of his reign and have like the first 5 episodes be his 60-year reign, and then the next 3 episodes be what we saw as the first 3 episodes and all this kind of stuff. And the compromise that they got to was like, well, okay, this season we're going to cram loads in, but from once we get the casting change, it's not going to be the same level of time jump going forward, because a lot of the...
I heard there's numerous actresses for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I understood it's going to go across her entire life. Is season 1. So season 1
is going
to be Rhaenyra's entire existence, and then it's going to
I've heard differently.
Because I was also wondering, like, because it's like 175 years to Game of Thrones. Like, would they show like the Mad King and everything? The war?
No. So my understanding is that this entire season is going to be about the Dance of the Dragons, which is a certain number of chapters in the book Fire and Blood, which isn't a novel like the Game of Thrones novels were written. It's a little bit more like it's kind of like an unreliable histories of Westeros. So the books are written from the perspective of these 2 court jesters. And the idea is you get the overall blueprint, but there's certain vagaries and certain details that you don't necessarily are 100% sure on, or because there's 2 accounts, like you'll hear like
it's very anecdotal. I take it then if it's 2 jesters.
Exactly. So like there's even accounts where the jesters will have different versions or slightly different versions of the same story to a certain extent. So my understanding is that this cast is now the cast for at least the rest of the season, but I may be wrong. I hope I'm right on that, but just because
I'm not the guy in the know there. I'm just repeating something I heard.
I think the new actresses are really good. Actors, whatever you want to call them. I think they're really good. I was worried about how I'd feel about the casting change, and I thought they both did a really good job. Particularly Emma Darcy. I thought she fucking nailed it. Great intro to her character.
Is that the Queen?
To her. No, the one that plays Rhaenyra, the older Rhaenyra.
Okay, well, I thought Alison was even more impressive. But
yeah, she was very good. Well, she's a great actress, man. She was in, I think she was in Ready Player One. But she's been in loads of stuff. She's been in loads of... Olivia Cook's her name. Movies and TV shows. I'm sure she was in Ready Player One. Yeah, Ready Player One. And Bates Motel. I watched Bates Motel. I don't remember her in that. But no, I'm enjoying that very much. Rings of Power, I'm enjoying less so, but I'm still watching it and I'm still giving it a chance. I've started watching The Mayor of Easttown, which I think you've watched.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, Kate.
Greatly enjoying that.
Kate got me to watch that, and yeah, that is pretty good.
And I think that takes us to pretty much just under an hour, and we've talked a lot of bullshit. So for an episode called For an episode called Bellator Breakdown, I think this is a good time to end it.
All right.
Particularly as we've got another show to record.
We do.
Bye, like, Laurie. Subscribe, guys. Thanks for watching. Dave. Bye, Laurie. Bye, Trifo.